overthinking, overstimulation, over-emotionality. These are the silent epidemics of our age. They're the payment we make, the sacrifice we make for living in modernity, the technological age, the information age. Mind always active, emotions always active, all stimulated. For the modern human, and perhaps even more so for the spiritual seeker, these forces create a storm of inner noise. The nervous system is frazzled, the mind loops endlessly, and the emotional body swings between highs and lows, desperately seeking equilibrium. The result? Disconnection from presence, from simplicity, from truth. We get caught in the web of trying to fix, control, analyze, and feel better. And in doing so, we often drift further from the peace that is always and already here. On the spiritual path, this can be especially confusing. What begins as a sincere longing for truth becomes entangled with over-efforting, over-processing, and hyper-sensitivity. We mistake drama for depth, intensity for transformation. But true awakening is not in the over anything. It is the underneath, below. It is in the simple, quiet willingness to be, to stay present in the midst of life's movement without becoming entangled. It's a return to stillness, a return to silence, a softening of the nervous system, a falling out of the head and into the heart, and deeper still, into the groundless ground of being. The nervous system is frazzled. So many on the spiritual path are almost trying to find peace, freedom from within the overstimulated, overthinking, over-emotional, hyperactive paradigm. But in so many ways, true spiritual freedom, self-realization, has nothing to do with finding out more, or has anything to do with the overstimulation or the over-agitated or the overthinking. It's kind of far back from that. It's letting go of all of that. It's finding a deeper stillness. It doesn't mean not doing anything, but it might do. I've done enough detoxifications in the old days that long fasting, where there's no internet, where there's no stimulation, there's no books, nothing to do, nothing. I've been into nature enough alone, without any books, without anything, before the phones even were around, just nothing. And that's easily forgotten in this age. You know, you go out into nature to go and seek some solitude or a communing with the silence of what is, and you take your phone with you. And there it is, you kind of have a look at it. Oh, that's a nice tree. That's a nice view. I'll take a picture. Seems innocuous, but is it? Isn't you know, you've taken the stimulated self, you've taken that one with you on the walk. You haven't left it behind. So you're not really alone. You're not really in silence and aloneness, communing with nature. You've got your phone with you. We take our phones with us. It's normal now. Overstimulation is normal. And in many ways, there's no going back from that. So this is not one of those, you know, old guys making a video saying, oh, you know, we've all got to go back to the cave times or nature and drop it all. But we do have to start getting a little bit intelligent here. You know, we have to see and somehow intelligently look at, you know, what's really going on. And that will mean that we have to be honest and truthful with ourselves about to what extent we're addicted to our devices and addicted to stress, underlying, almost unconscious stress systems, the adrenal system, the nervous system, which for most people is ramped up, overthinking, overstimulated, all of these kind of things. And we have to be truthful about it without any guilt and without any shame. And to say, okay, you know, somehow I need to start doing something about this. This is practical. I'm just talking about a practical approach to admitting, if we can get that far, to admitting that there's overstimulation. Because as long as there's overstimulation, particularly in the mental, emotional, nervous system triad, you know, then it's going to be very, very, very hard to relax enough to know anything of the peace that's much deeper than that. So, you know, firstly, instead of running away from all of that, you know, going for a quick fix. I know what I'll do. I'll go into nature. I know what I'll do. I'll meditate. You know, this is like a band-aid, you know, on a big wound. Just doesn't work. So there has to be something more intelligent that steps in, you know, that starts to actually look at look at the source of the issue. You know, is there constantly something that's being moved away from? Agitation, silence of being, deeper feelings, wounds, traumas, hurts, grievances, anger, you know, all of these kind of things. So they really at the core of what's going on for each and every one of us. Because it was only when I really looked personally, deeply, and discovered within myself, you know, what was really, you know, in the shadows, what was in the dark box, what was in Pandora's box. Because, you know, man, if you've got stuff in Pandora's box, and you know what I mean by Pandora's box, just stuff that's tucked away that's never really been looked at, you know, then, you know, the energy of that doesn't just stay in Pandora's box. So we know we're much more intelligent than that. And what that does is seep its way, make its way kind of covertly or even not covertly and destructively into every area of your life, into the nervous system, into the over-emotionality, into the frustrated, into the reactivity, into the, you know, chasing thoughts, chasing ideas, chasing dreams, chasing enlightenment, chasing anything, chasing the next book, chasing the next woman or the next man, or chasing the next drink, or chasing the next anything. You know, they're all addictive mechanisms that are usually driven from whatever's locked up in Pandora's box that is not being attended to, but the energy of which has made itself, you know, out into our lives. So I know this is a slight shift from the overstimulation, over anxious, over emotional, but everything in the human experience is interwoven, is interrelated. You start pulling on one string in a human being's psychology or psychological way of being, or their spiritual, mental, emotional, physical state. You start pulling on one string, and pretty quickly you're starting to pull on all sorts of different other strings, because everything is connected to everything else. And so we need to kind of start facing that. Is the overstimulation saying something to us? You know, not just, oh, I'm overactive and I need to stop being overactive, but why are we overactive? What is it that we think we're getting? I mean, it becomes addictive. You know, of course it does. And then the addictive cycle just takes over, and we've forgotten, or we're completely unaware of, for years and years, or even for the whole of our lives, what it is that we're actually avoiding. Most people are avoiding something. Most people are avoiding something within themselves. That's what I've discovered. And that which you avoid within yourself finds its way into your life somehow. And either, you know, makes you sick, destroys a relationship, creates an addiction, brings depression, anxiety, or psychological issues, or it does something. Most people are avoiding something within themselves. This is just a truth. It's not a blame. It's not, you know, it's just almost a fact of things. You know, so I'm very much of the kind of mind, of the approach that says, oh, well, let's face that then. Let's face that truth for ourselves. Let's get real. Let's get honest. Why not? Yeah, it's scary. But, you know, when you see the opposite, you know, is more scary, the corrosive effect of what is denied, what is kept. You try and keep it in Pandora's box. You know, eventually Pandora's box is going to grow like to the size of your life, you know. And if only it was as simple as just, oh, it's a Pandora's box and I'll keep it over there and I'll be happy all the time, you know, then we'd all be happy. But we're not. We're not. People aren't. People are distracted. And people, you know, get vicarious stimulation in a myriad number of ways, and these are all good. These are all good. But underneath that, on the deeply spiritual, existential level, the majority of people are not happy, are not at peace. Maybe happy is too glib, but are not at peace. Why? We're born into this miraculous existence. Most of us, some people are born into hell. We're born into this existence, and if grace has afforded us somewhat of a kind of comfortable life or something-ish, I don't know. Well, you know, this is, it doesn't really work like that. But it's like we've assumed, you know, and we're taking it for granted now that life is almost uncomfortable unless you've got loads of money or something like that. This is puerile. You know, it's our human right to be in our authority and to be at peace as we move through life. And yet it seems we have to go on such a deep and profound journey to find anything like that peace. And the culture takes us away from that peace. And the denial of our own emotions, dark emotions, hidden emotions, old emotions, also keeps us away from that peace. And so we never get to know that peace throughout our whole lives. And then we die. So get wise, let's get intelligent, let's get kind of a bit more clued in, a bit more honest. I think honesty is a great place to start. Honesty with oneself and tender with what arises when one is honest. To be honest and tender at the same time, honest and kind with oneself is a blessing. Is a blessing, because then, it begins the process of actually opening up what is in Pandora's box, gently, slowly, with a kind of compassion, with a kindness that we have. We have the capacity to be kind to ourselves, and that starts to heal the wound that is being avoided through the overstimulation, over distraction, overthinking, ramped up, stressed nervous system. Don't try and fix that. Find the source of the issue that leads to that. Fixing. I'm not interested in fixing. I'm interested in a deeper healing that doesn't need any fixing. Deeper holding. Anyway, that's enough. Bless you. Bye-bye.